Welcome to Women in B2B Marketing, a show where CMOs, VPs of marketing, and all strong women leaders in B2B discuss their top tactics, strategies, and tips for building high-performing teams, leveraging trends, and ultimately rocking their marketing careers. Made by and for women, insightful for all. I'm your host and 15-year B2B marketer, Jane Serra. Let's dive in. Okay, thank you everybody for joining us for another episode of Women in B2B Marketing. I am fangirling a bit and super excited about our guest today. I'm always excited, but I'm extra excited today. We have with us the one and only Melissa Rosenthal, Chief Creative Officer at ClickUp. For anyone that doesn't know that, I can't imagine any listeners do not know of her. But she's been in marketing for 15 plus years. She has been named on every list that is out there for top marketers. So 30 under 30 list, 40 under 40 list. I'm hoping one day there's a 50 under 50 list so I still have a chance of making it one day. But Melissa's just so well known for everything she's done with BuzzFeed, with ClickUp, and just amazing career. So thank you so much for joining us today, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you so much for the lovely intro and for having me. Excited to be here.
Cool. Let's dive in. So we were just starting to talk about this a little before we turned on the mics, but I'm curious, how did you get to where you are today as CCO, and why Chief Creative Officer versus Chief Brand Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, et cetera? I'd love to hear about your journey and title choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So my journey, I've only been in B2B SaaS marketing for the past 3+ years. The majority of my career has been consumer focused and mostly at startups. So I was one of the first 10 employees at BuzzFeed. And then after BuzzFeed, I went to go co-found Cheddar with my old boss. So have been in just more disruption, focused roles. And the role always just shapes out to be what it is because I've been so early. It's not like I've come into those companies and said, okay, this is exactly what's going to happen. It's more, hey, how do we build this? This is what we want to do. And then we set the mission and we do it. But that with ClickUp, it was a little different. After Cheddar, we'd sold Cheddar to a large cable company, and I was very burnt out by media. Media landscape had shifted dramatically over the past 10 years when I had exited, and it was just the grass was not green, in my opinion. It felt very brown and very thirsty for water, and there was no water to be found because Facebook and Google had taken all the water. So in terms of being able to really thrive and differentiate and build and make a difference and do something different and differentiated, I was looking at tech and SaaS, and I'd always been interested in it, but it felt like what consumer had, tech could really use, and there was such a wide open space for that. And that really excited me, where there's something that hadn't really been done before. The grass is green, the opportunity is endless, and there's this flood of, excitement and investment around tech companies, and especially tech companies that are really helping people. In media, the media and the content is the product. And I really wanted to work in an industry where there was an actual product and you can create all the storytelling on the brand to sell the product, but it wasn't the product itself. That's why and how I found myself in this industry.
Do you find it kind of ironic that now that you transitioned from media into B2B, everyone starts saying everyone needs a media company in B2B, right? And so content became the product again, or the second product?
Yeah, it's funny. The content is still the product to sell the product. There's still ARR, which media never had. It was all advertising revenue. So I like that. I think that's cool because I think it's finally the playbook is catching on, but there's still a real product. That's what we never had. The product was just the content.
Yeah. It's kind of perfect for you because you know both worlds. So when both collide, it's just magic, as we've seen with everything you and team have done with ClickUp. I'm curious, and then getting into CCO, the Chief Creative Officer, again, some people, titles matter to people. In some spaces, it doesn't. It kind of, as a leader, you have to know both sides, and titles do matter in the scope of the team and org structure. But I'm curious, why Chief Creative Officer over Chief Marketing Officer? Do you have any care about that, or does it mean something?
Great question. And it's actually a very important question. So at the consumer level, I believe in the title of CMO. because the title of CMO really does encompass everything that is marketing. And I think that person, it doesn't require the split in kind of the expertise that B2B SaaS does.
Yeah.
So when I was talking to ClickUp and being interested in this area and exploring it more and talking to peers in the industry, what I realized is the CMO title, the tenure is real short. Like you sign up for that and you're signing up for like an 18-month tenure and like you're done. And I'm not that type of person. I like really want to invest my work is my passion, and I want to be in something for the long haul and build it and scale it and win and succeed. And I think a lot of like CMOs, maybe it's just because of the nature of the role, and they know this. It's like journeymen and women, and they're like after 18 months, they just go to the next company, the next company, the next company, and like that's just not like who I am. So I wanted something where I could have longevity and I could build and I could be successful. And the thought process was that CMO just doesn't make sense. I'm like, at some point, like if you need someone, maybe like hire a CMO, and that CMO can handle all the demand gen and lead gen and all of the like lead generation marketing activities that I really didn't want to like oversee. And we can collaborate on that. So it was like chief brand or chief creative officer made a lot of sense. They are interchangeable. I effectively oversee everything that relates to brand, but it made a lot more sense than a CMO title. And I'm really happy I went that route. So ClickUp doesn't have a CMO. There is myself and a chief growth officer, and there's collaboration board on how brand intersects with all of the demand gen, more traditional B2B marketing activities.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And it kind of, as you explain all of that, it all kind of fits into place that there's a chief growth officer and you on the brand side. So how do you see those two teams? How do they work together at ClickUp?
I mean, without like the fact that different people roll up to different people, it's effectively, we're all under one roof. All of the activities and all the campaigns we work on together. There's always components that incorporate both growth, marketing, and brand, right? It's all tied so closely together that it's not even really a thought. It's not a battle for like how we operate. It's just sort of naturally the flow into how campaigns work, how they're rolled out. There's a rhythm to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. You just like in lockstep, you two, your teams are just super collaborative. It must be a culture that the two of you create together that keeps those silos from breaking things down, right? And keeps the collaboration happening. Is there anything you do in particular to keep that? Like, I love that your instinct was it isn't an issue. We are one team, but how do you foster that environment?
Well, I mean, the chief growth officer is relatively newer. So a lot of that did fall under me for a while. And we had someone that was kind of a director level at marketing, and we worked with them. But it is just aligning on like your initiatives, your goals, your activities, your KPIs from like the top. And then everyone plays a role in how those are going to be rolled out. So if you're aligning on like what, like you have team goals and those goals are matched, obviously they're measured a little bit differently just due to the nature of the people that you have under you. I have designers and motion graphic artists and video people that are not held to demand gen goals. It's a little bit different, but my holistic goals are tied to the company's goals. So it makes it a little bit easier to then cross collaborate on the bigger picture, and then also have activities that are outside of the scope of some of those things that capitalize on other opportunities that we want to do.
Yeah. Amazing. And obviously ClickUp has had amazing growth over the past few years since inception. And first, kudos again. And second, what kind of lessons have you learned away, or what's top takeaway for you when you reflect back on your time at ClickUp so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is saying this on another podcast recently, but I think there's an expectation from a lot of people that when you see growth like this, and now like I'm on here talking to you where 3 years ago I wouldn't be, that this happened overnight. And everything happens overnight. And I think people talk about like overnight success. It's like, oh, this person had a huge exit. It just happened. But nothing happens overnight. And that includes building a strong, differentiated, memorable brand. There's investment, there's strategy, there's thoughtfulness into every single decision. And it's building that muscle and investing slowly and seeing growth and doing more of it. And that's what amounts to what you see today. Because I'll get calls from peers and they're like, my CEO is like down my back to build a brand like ClickUp. And I'm like, well, it doesn't really work like that. First of all, like what is like, you shouldn't want to build a brand like ClickUp. You should want to build a brand like that's differentiated for your company, but also at the same point, like that, then your CEO needs to understand that there's a lot that's required to do that. And it's not there's no magic bullet to build a brand. So I think it's like everyone wants the shiny thing and they don't understand like how hard it is and how long it takes and how many decisions and how many things go into actually doing that. So it's just a little bit of education around like what it actually takes to build a brand, like what we've built.
Yeah. Everyone wants a playbook, right? Okay, ClickUp did it. So how can we do it? ClickUp didn't accomplish what they did in our space. And it's like trying to find those little secrets to success, but there are no secrets. No. It's really, I mean, there's probably generalities, like high level things, like really knowing your audience, right? And nailing that down, which is another thing I would love to dive in. Yeah, no, I speak, it's so funny because it's like, I speak high level to those generalities of like, these are the things that highest level you need. And it sounds so simple, but it is like the foundational parts of what is needed. But then the rest needs to be your own playbook. The copying and pasting doesn't work for every single company. Yes. I think that's another thing. It's like you can copy and paste. You have to take those, understand like the blueprint and skeleton, and then build it yourself. Yeah. Build your own playbook. We were touching on the audience side, right? So knowing your audience, high level, there's so many micro levels underneath that go into knowing your audience continuously because it changes. Yes. But you had an exceptionally difficult job at ClickUp because it's a horizontal product. So many different personas can utilize your platform. So how did you go about, where did you start?
That is a great question. And I think it's like a blessing and a curse, of course, because it's not vertical in the way that you're like, just, it has to be so niche that you can't reach a broader audience. Yeah. So we viewed it more as like B2C in the beginning. It's like, okay, like our play is going to reach, like our TAM is pretty much everyone. It's teams, but the teams can be from 2 to thousands of people. So in pretty much every industry across every single role. So to start, you're gonna, if you want to be able to even have be top of mind or be relevant in anyone's head, like you have to cast a really wide net, which is why like a lot of our, our buys they weren't fully national, but they were in every single city that knowledge workers were in, right? Like the major cities in the US. And that was really where we hyper-focused our campaigns and our ad buys and our geo-targeting for pretty much all of our campaigns. And it spoke to everyone because these were problems that we could pretty much solve for everyone. And of course, as you move further in your tenure and as a company, you focus more on specific ICPs based on expansion and based on other triggers and things that you see along the way and other trends. But the reality is like, you really want to own mind share across your full market potential. And then you can create hyper-focused campaigns to hit these ICPs. And that's sort of how I look at it. So it's harder at first and easier because you want to reach everyone. And then it becomes like, okay, we need to speak to these different personas. How do we do that? But we've already achieved that top level brand awareness. So it makes it a little bit easier because we're already either known or in some way in the consideration set before we even create that subsequent, more funneled, more targeted campaign.
Yeah. It's interesting because it seems like you went about it the opposite way that everyone preaches or their playbooks, right? Of find your niche down as tiny as you can so you can get really hyper-focused. Everyone preaches that. And it seems like you took the opposite approach of like wide net. We know what we can accomplish for all of these people. So we focus on that message, but it's generalized. And then we see what we learn from these bigger ones and kind of go down into the more focused sub ICPs. I think
also if you can own like a category or be synonymous with something where ClickUp is synonymous with productivity and synonymous with work, it's easier to then niche down and find those specific ICPs. It's like similar to Geico, right? Geico is, they're in billions of dollars on awareness and on market share to people that are under 18 that, don't need insurance yet. But when they do need insurance, they're going to think of Geico. And if they need specific insurance, then they're going to, they're going to niche down and understand that Geico has auto insurance and homeowners insurance and all these different brackets and under this Geico umbrella. And that's sort of how I think of us. We're this larger productivity umbrella in which marketers developers, IT, HR can all coexist and work collaboratively.
That's such a good comparison too. I never thought about it like that, because if you're advertising insurance like Geico, then people know that they associate you with that. So when they're looking for motorcycle insurance, they're like, oh, Geico has insurance. Let's see if they do that. And they know part of it.
Exactly. Geico, I love that comparison because Geico has every single type of insurance, but they don't need to focus on those types of insurance because you just associate Geico with insurance. And that's the correlation that makes more sense, rather than like Geico advertising for jewelry insurance and auto insurance and motorcycle insurance and homeowners insurance and umbrella policies. It's like, that's way too confusing. Like, market at the highest level, and then when you get the buyer in, you're able to sell them on what you can do for other teams. And then I think that's where expansion comes in, right? If you can get the marketing team using ClickUp, then it's much easier for us to expand within a company when one team is already excited about it. So why don't we just get everyone excited within each role, each sector about work productivity, and then expand within?
Yeah, it's so great because I love this mentality. And do you think that having the B2C background allowed you to see this vision clearly, whereas in B2B, where we're kind of trained to that niche down focus, you didn't even have to worry about that because you had this other mentality coming in?
I think that's always been my superpower. It's like stepping into most things blind and not copying 100%, but like not thinking like the industry that I was in before. I think that's just been the biggest blessing, because I was never a trained B2B marketer. So I never thought of B2B marketing as it needed to be like business to business instead of like business to human. So it's just a lot of what I was like, why don't we do this? Like, buyers are people, and enterprise buyers are still people. They're the same buyers as mid-market buyers and small business. They are the same. And if we're selling we're selling the value of the fact that we make work easier because everything's in one place, we're selling that to everyone. So a lot of my playbook, a lot of my thought process coming in was definitely the B2C angle.
Yeah, I love that. And then you mentioned the kind of land and expand, right? Or if you get in through marketing and then you can expand to other teams and departments. After a year or two, I'm making up timelines here, but after some time, and were you able to identify patterns of a certain department or ICP being the best to expand from?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
It starts very high level. And then of course you can go after every single ICP and create subsequent campaigns, but then you're going after everyone. So yes, there's definitely, hey, this is the way that we're going to land and expand more is in through marketing, in through agencies, in through developers, right? These are the core ICPs we should focus on, because that's what you definitely start to see it, which is great. Because it's like you've done all this and then you start to see the data, and then you can utilize that data to create more niche campaigns. But you can still do that in really fun, cool B2C style ways. It's just more targeted based on the language and based on the value.
Yeah, and it probably becomes layers of campaigns where you still keep that wide net of general branding so that people associate you with the like everything you want them to. But then you also have these sub-targeted campaign layers underneath that umbrella.
It's 100%.
Beautiful.
100%.
Very famous ClickUp for doing the Superbowl ad, right? And getting into that, do you think that also from your B2C background was an easier entry? Because I think it's really difficult, or B2B doesn't really think of doing something like that very often, right? It's super new for us. So breaking barriers.
Yeah, it was exciting. I had never done a Superbowl ad before. So I said yes, because I say yes to everything that's exciting. And how could you say no to a Superbowl ad? And, I definitely wanted to do it. And it's also like it wasn't just like, let's do a Superbowl ad. We invested so heavily out of home and into experiential and all of these different marketing activities that were tied to general awareness, that to be able to fund that and to be able to on the biggest stage made a lot of sense. Now, we didn't buy a national ad. We bought a geo-targeted ad into the cities that we had already run significant out-of-home campaigns. So it followed our pattern of investment, and it followed our thought process on hitting knowledge workers. So most of the people seeing our Super Bowl ad had probably seen our billboards, had probably seen our advertising. So it made a lot of sense for us. It was kind of like this 3-year lead up to the biggest stage and a much larger investment into something that we had the internal team to be able to execute on, and we bought strategically, and it was geo-targeted. So it made a lot of sense the way that we did it. And not that it was cheap, but it was strategic as it could be in the way that we purchased it and the way that we created it.
Did you have this planned out as kind of the big hurrah after all of these geo-targeted out of home? Like I know in Miami personally, I saw ClickUp wrapped all of our transportation in Miami. So it's just like ClickUp Christmas. And that's how I've heard of ClickUp. So amazingly like worked. That was the first step and then it built up. So was it planned to be this big final step of the Super Bowl ad from the get-go, or was that just a cherry on top that came a little bit later?
I mean, did I always want to do a Super Bowl ad? Yeah, I mean, that's like the holy grail of advertising. But I think it was that point in time where it really made sense for us to do that. Yeah. It was this like culmination of all of these things that laddered up to, this is the right investment. Like we've done all these things. Like we've spent all this money to get this far. Like we're going to do this. And it was, a lot of other B2B advertisers did the same thing. Gong was on there. Like a bunch of other B2B companies were running Super Bowl ads. And we're like, why would we? Monday.com, like one of our biggest competitors was doing it. And we're like, we can do something better than them. Like we can kind of put them to shame. Yeah. And we're like, why not? And like our whole strategy had also been punching up. We'd punched up against Atlassian and against Jira. I'll never be hired by Jira because of what we've done to them. Yeah. But, which is fine. We had done all of that, and our whole strategy was punching up against the companies that we wanted to be one day. And this was just the perfect way to do it. Obviously, there was more pressure because it's like our biggest competitors also doing their Super Bowl ad. What is their like? Everyone was eagle-eyeing their strategy, their approach, what their ad was going to be, their teasers. And I think we did a better job. It's like they put all of this money into production to create an ad that like didn't really resonate. Where we created something that was very, very us, very humorous, very differentiated. Definitely something that you don't really see. We went back in history. We had done a few history ads before, so this felt very like this is a great way to put this on the big stage.
Yeah. So you said something just now that like this was very us, right? Like more authentic, and it was fun. And like, how did you go about determining what us was for ClickUp? This can be any brand that you've worked with, but I'm curious how you've created amazing brands. It's obviously your strong suit, one of them. So where do you begin in creating this very cohesive, clear brand identity?
Yeah. So I would not have joined a company that I felt there was an uphill battle in creating the type of brand that I'm good at creating. Vibrant, bold, differentiated, out of the box. If I felt that leadership at this company, ClickUp, was not aligned to that vision and my personality, it wouldn't have worked. So, when I joined ClickUp, it was, I believe, 60 or 70 people. They had good product market fit. The logo was already created. The brand was already vibrant. Our founder and CEO, Zeb, is vibrant, is bold. He wears bold prints. Like everything about him screams the brand, which was part of the reason that I was like, this is great, because like it already is inherent to the company and to what he has built. And to be able to capitalize on that and build upon it and take that places and explore with it was just that perfect fit. So if I was trying to come into service now and I'm like, we're going to be ClickUp, like that wouldn't have, like we're going to be the bold and vibrant and funny, like that would just like be a terrible fit. Yeah. So it was inherent in what he had built to date. And I just felt like that was the perfect fit for me to be able to jump in and do a lot of what I was able to do.
Yeah. And get it out there more to just a massive audience. Amazing. And then we touched on, of course, a couple of big campaigns or pieces of your campaigns, but what are you most proud of in any position? Like what's one of the moments or campaigns that comes to mind then makes you smile when you think of it? Like you're just pumped that happened. Super Bowl ad, I'm sure, is up there, but
yeah. I love what we did when we went up against Jira. I think it was just really funny. And like, I think the execution was like you couldn't watch that and like not laugh. We created basically a series of what the equivalent of like Apple versus PC ads would have been in the 90s. And they were very hard hitting against Jira. And my favorite one was called A Beta Tool. And it was basically a fake pharmaceutical ad that positioned ClickUp as, the pill.
Magic I remember pill that.
that would kill you from Jira. And we filmed it just like a pharma ad. And, we created this A Beta Tool. And it was just, it almost was like read like an SNL skit in the way that it was. And I think that's what made it really approachable. Like, you're already familiar with that format. Like, you're familiar with like that satirical thing. You've seen it on SNL. You've seen skits like that. That was number one. Two, you're all familiar, like everyone's familiar with the pharmaceutical format. So we already, you kind of already captivated because you're like, what is this for? Right? Like, it draws you in. And then if you are using Jira, we use all of the pain points and the research that we had done on why people hate Jira. It had almost become like a cultural meme. And then we incorporated this into this heavily dramatic, dramatized ad. And it was just like the chef's kiss. It was like perfect. My team just, it was so much fun to make. And it landed really well. Like I had people from Atlassian emailing me saying, okay, good job. Like, they couldn't help but laugh.
Oh, wow. I was like, what were they emailing?
They were like, don't tell anyone who sent you this. But that was really
They're like, any openings over there?
We had a bunch of people join from Atlassian because of our advertising strategy.
Yeah.
Like, you just couldn't help but laugh. So I think like taking a very, I would say a bigger risk, creating something that is polarizing. Many people do not love that format of advertising, jousting against your competitors. But when it's right, it's right. And I think also the cultural sentiment around Jira was so poor that going up, and there were already so many memes like that were circulating that it wasn't us going up against Monday. Us going up against a tool that already people do not like using, especially that are not engineers that are being forced to use. Like, we utilized that aspect of it and said, this is the right competitor to go against because of these reasons. So it wasn't just like, let's pick one out of a hat. It was like, this makes 100, we know we can win against them. And they're already culturally like, it's relevant to kind of talk about how frustrating the product is to use. Why don't we use that to our advantage and then also tie in a creative format to it?
Yeah. And most importantly, too, the product can live up to what you're saying, right? So it's not like you're making this claim and it's a better tool and then they go and it's like, same issue. Like, you have to be able to deliver after that.
Absolutely.
And it does. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm curious for when you come up with campaigns like this, in really any company, but with this example to expand on it, how does it begin? Like the start of an idea, that first sparkle, and then expanding on it. Are you big on brainstorming as a team, or kind of how does that process typically work for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like in this case, we realized that I think it was one of our sales reps or our VP of sales said, "Hey, we're winning against Jira in like pretty much every case," and it was like, okay. Great. And then our CEO is like, let's do a big campaign. Oh, that's how things start. And then everyone got on it, which was so awesome to see everyone just kind of be like, yes, like this is it. Like, it's campaign, our big campaign against Jira. And we went into our little creative lab and came up with 10 different concepts. And then our team wrote scripts. And we figured out which ones we wanted to go with. And we narrowed it down to 5 different ads that we would, A/B test and go into market with. And then we shot them. I think we did this in it was something crazy, like 3 weeks. We shot 5 ads. We created an entire campaign. Our product team got our importer ready to go to import from Jira. So, I mean, it was such a collaborative campaign across growth and product and design and product design and us, and every part of the company was pretty much involved in this, which was very special.
Yeah. So cool. So it all starts with intel, right? That little piece of intel that just piques interest. Like, okay, we're already winning in this area. How do we expand on that and make a bigger splash since we know it's already working?
Exactly.
And then that brainstorming, that think tank is the heart of it, right? Making those ideas, bringing them to light. So you admit here, like it's a risk, right? You have to take a risk because you're going up, you're battling a big company that's well known.
Yes.
For everyone who's risk averse in marketing, what do you, or really to everybody, just do you think it's important to take risks in marketing, and to what degree? Or here you explained like there was already steps towards it, so it was a comfortable risk, but a risk nonetheless. I guess just I'm kind of all over the place here, but who should take risks and when?
I mean, a lot of the things that I said, like, right, like the insight, the cultural mainstream relevance of how dissatisfied people were with this product already allowed it, like opened the hole for us to kind of swoop in and say, we're going to like capitalize on that. Our ability to create what we thought and what we knew were really funny ways of telling this story, and our confidence in that, because we had done it historically, my confidence in the team that we could pull it off. And also I had a sit down with our CEO when we decided to do this. And I said, these ads are great. We love them. And I said, we're aligned on this, but I was like, I want to let you know, people are going to find this polarizing. Like, regardless of how awesome they are, people are going to love it. And some people are going to hate it. And they're going to hate it because they're like, focus on your own product and don't, like, why do you have to mention the other? Why do you have to, like, it's just, there's just a bias in marketing towards people that hate competitive advertising. And it's just a known thing. Yes. So, it's just the warning of like, hey, this is going to happen no matter how great our ads are. We just need to be ready for some backlash in that case. And if we're willing to do that, then this is going to be a fantastic campaign. So it's a little bit of level setting and just making sure there's transparency, so that your CEO can expect whatever the backlash could be. And then it's really understanding that insight. How is the market going to respond to this? Like the fact that there are already, memes and cultural pieces in Reddit that had millions and millions of views about how much people hated this tool. Like it was open for our commentary. So it just, every piece of that, the insight, just like that piece, our ability and our confidence in our team to create really like actually humorous things, the way that we approached it, it wasn't so harsh. It wasn't like a political bashing ad. I think there's so many elements of like how you do something and how you think about it that gives you that gut feeling of like, this is right. And it's based on data and it's based on actually happening. But we didn't do that across every single company that we compete against. Like, and also Atlassian's a $50 billion company. Like they should be able to handle it,
Yeah, true.
And if they want to, and they want to punch down, we welcome it. Let big companies punch down and give you that space, give you that awareness.
Did they do anything? Like after the fact, meaning like, did they respond in any kind of ad? I hadn't seen anything, but I of course could have missed it.
They did something really funny at their very large user conference about a couple of months ago. Their chief product officer started mentioning our billboards, and like he had a bunch of logos, competitor logos above his head on a big screen. And he said, you'll never believe this. I saw this ad on the way to this conference and it said one app to replace them all. And he kept going on. He must have talked about our billboards. Can you believe that? One app to replace them all. He was on a billboard and on a bus. We were just like, oh, why is he giving us, like, he's not mentioning the company, but our company logo is above his head. Why is he saying our slogan over and over? So we did
so funny.
We did what we would have done at BuzzFeed, and we took this clip of him and we created a song and we put the song behind it and we remixed him, and then we put him side by side with our billboards, and we duped his voice. So we created an ad for ourselves out of the ad that he gave us and gifted us.
Oh, I love that. You guys are so ballsy. I love it.
It was ballsy. We did it in an hour and we posted it everywhere. Again, I got a lot of emails from very funny emails from Atlassian people that were like, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Like I hated it. I heard that he hated it. I would imagine.
Sure.
But yeah, we did that. We did something very strategic, which was we had every single one of our employees post it from their LinkedIn accounts. So they couldn't issue a takedown notice because it was the instance of it was like 1,000 instances of it on LinkedIn, they would never be able to do that. So it went viral, on its own, and there was nothing they could really do.
Wow.
So ballsy, very ballsy.
I just
Not
love
every company would do that.
The marketing brain there.
It was also just like, it's a mindset of looking for these opportunities. Like, granted, like everything, the opportunities come as a byproduct of you doing all these other things to get to that moment. But then if you have a mindset of like looking for these opportunities, and when you see them, being able to take advantage of them in real time, like that's a mindset. So I think it's like thinking like that. And the BuzzFeed way of thinking was definitely, how do we take this thing and turn it into a viral meme within minutes of it? And that was like how we approach this.
Yes. I mean, it just everything makes sense from your background that comes into just creating this culture of people kind of being able to react on a dime, right? So if being able to pause the bigger long-term projects and strategies they're working on for an opportunity that they don't want to miss. So it's creating that environment. It seems just so fun and like fast-paced.
I mean, it's very hard. It's definitely hard. And it's definitely, you're constantly trying to beat yourself and compete with yourself. And these opportunities don't come every day. And the market is hard now.
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's fun being able to take this approach and have seen it work over the past 3 years. Just being infinitely proud of like the best team I've ever worked with. Like, these guys are the best. They are the best. And coming into a new industry and being able to like, do something that is cool and differentiated is very special. Yeah,
I love that. And how you mentioned the past year or two, the past few years have been crazy, but this year has been especially tough in the tech space. How has that changed things like culture and performance and what's working? Like, what have you pivoted with your team to bring revenue in this crazy year?
I mean, there's definitely obviously a focus on efficiency. We're not doing the huge billboard buys and like investments in like the much more broader, like expensive awareness, but we do have an amazing team that is able to produce content very quickly, very cheaply, very efficiently, that can still speak to broader narratives that exist regardless, inefficiency within companies and meetings and AI and all the topics that people are still talking about that you want to be able to take advantage of. So thinking of it as like thousands of micro billboards, micro campaigns that you're running at any moment, rather than like the big campaigns that cost a lot of money. So just a mindset switch into how do you think about what you can do more efficiently than spending a ton of money on billboards.
Yeah, makes sense. It's the whole, what we're all dealing with, the more with less, right? And scaling where you can and cutting where you can. I'm curious. So you've conquered B2C and media. I'd say conquered B2B now. Not that this is happening anytime soon, but I'm curious what you see in the future for yourself as the next challenge, because you've gone in these two directions. I'm curious if you have a third in the future.
I don't know, but I'm not the type to like say in the same space again. Like even within media, when I went from BuzzFeed to starting Cheddar was different. It was not publishing. It was live stream, news network that could differentiate. I always like to challenge myself with something that I think is the next thing, or free up my brain from like what I've done for the past couple of years. Because I think like starting from a clean slate where you're like, oh shit, I have to figure this out again, is I think the most rewarding thing that you can do to yourself, because you're not complacent. It's just like, how do I challenge myself again? It would be like, if in my next move, like I would not want to go to a company that's in B2B SaaS that's like, create ClickUp for us. Like that just doesn't feel appealing to me. So I don't know.
And so many companies are going to be coming to you asking for exactly that.
I'm like, that's like not what I want to do. So it'll be something probably different in which I feel like there's green grass again in a space that needs something different and be built, where there is that excitement and I feel it. Like it's just also like an inherent gut feeling that like it can happen, and this is the company and this is the space that can happen in, and also like looking at the market and where it's trending. I'm very like into that.
I see something in the travel space in your future. I feel like that's a totally separate field that would be just so
I love the travel space. I just don't love the travel space. It's just like, it's such like both like a seasonal and financial, like heavily dependent on the market. And like, it's just the factors in which like, I don't know. It's, it's like, it's too much of a risky space, but I love it. I love it. I wanted to start my own product.
Like risk.
Yeah. This one doesn't seem like a great sector. Too many factors.
Different kind of risk for you. Yeah. Especially after the pandemic. I mean, it hit it so hard. It was crazy to be in.
Yeah. It's not recession proof or pandemic proof.
No, but really what is? Right, pandemic proof, our new thing. I did see recently, I think you posted you went to Japan, if I'm not mistaken. And you posted something about how you highly recommend the need to just unplug basically and recharge. And one way to do it is through travel. I'm curious, why do you think this, that we need to do to recharge? What does it do to reinvigorate us? And is travel key to it, or is it just turning off for a while?
Good question. It's a weird way to say this, but like the way that I operate within companies that I go to, I like go very like hard and fast, and I don't really like pick my head up. Like I just don't like, I mean, I don't know. I question this a bit, but I've definitely like made sacrifices in my personal life and everything to be able to get to where I am. And I think that that's just a reality of like who I am and what I'm driven by and what I want. I don't think that everyone is the same way. And I think that's totally fine. It's if you want this, you want a family, you want friends, you want like you just can't do everything. So I think it's like picking and choosing what's really important to you and optimizing your life and your career for that.
Yeah.
I do believe at certain points in time, like you do need it. I hadn't taken a vacation in years. I don't also love vacations. I like experiences. And I think like travel can be an experience where you're like, Japan is just such a different perspective on culture and what they value and how they act. And it just takes your mind out of an American way of thinking. And I think that's like I love that.
Yes.
So I think travel is a great way to open your mind up and expose yourself to things that you don't know about and just expand your way of thinking. And that's why I love it so much. And I traveled to Japan a lot for BuzzFeed because I had a team there, and I just like fell in love with it. I fell in love with the culture, and it's like my favorite place to spend time. It's just it's its own world, and it's so special and just unique and cool and just limitless. Yeah.
I need to go. I've been into the airport for a transfer, but I haven't stepped out of the airport. It's on very high up on my list, hopefully soon. But I agree. I mean, I'm a big advocate for traveling because exactly what you said, it gives you just new perspective and to get out of the American mindset. And I mean, that can mean so many different things, but really to get out of all of those American mindsets. It's just so refreshing to just remember that there's so many other types of people and ways of living and cultures.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if the pandemic taught us anything, it's like travel while you can. Like Japan was shut down for years. I mean, the unimaginable happened. And I think whether you travel and you are able to work remotely now, or you're able to take a trip where you can work a little bit remote, like I think travel is just really helpful. And not to say that like travel shouldn't be a vacation to Cabo where you can just lay out in the sun. If that's like your idea of recharging, great. I mean, my idea of recharging is walking 200 miles through a city that I want to explore and looking at everything with new eyes. And then that's what fuels me outside of work and helps me come up with ideas. I mean, I think in order to like completely shut off, you have to immerse yourself in something completely different. And I think that's different things for everyone. For me, that's, a part of that is travel.
Are you always like jotting down ideas as they come? I'm the kind of person who I'll get an idea at midnight, like as I'm trying to fall asleep, I'm like, oh, and then I go write it down, or in the shower.
And I try to write it so I'll like know what it means, because I'll wake up in the morning and be like, oh.
Yes. That's the worst when that happens.
Yeah. I'll wake up and
if you're in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Or I'll take a picture of something that's inspiring to me in like on a trip. But I'm always like, I think my ideas come a lot when I'm not thinking. If you're trying to think so hard about something, sometimes you're just like, but you'll just then take a break from it, do something else. And you're like, got it. Like that's how I think, or in the shower or something where I'm just not in that.
Yes. So bottom line here, change your scenery, even if it's just stepping away from the laptop for a bit.
Yeah. And maybe stop because you'll think.
How do we do that?
I don't know. It's hard. I struggle with it myself. So I don't really have the answer. Sometimes it just happens.
Try.
It's like, try. When you naturally fall out of a state of just focusing and trying to come up with a solution, sometimes the solution comes to you.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's funny. My husband jokes that when we go on vacation, I become vacation Jane, like just a different person where I stop thinking, and that kind of weight and craziness and frenzy and constant to-do list is paused.
Yeah.
But that is when I come up with like ideas and I start thinking, and you're right, when you get that break. So take vacations, everyone, whatever that is for you.
Yes, I agree. Whatever vacation means to you, it's still important, especially as hard as most of us all work and how much of our lives we pour into our work. It's important to feel refreshed every once in a while. Otherwise, you're going to get burnt out. It's a real thing.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of advice, I wonder if you were to look back at yourself just getting into marketing 15 plus years ago. I mean, it wasn't even B2B to start, it was in media, starting out in your career. What would you tell yourself going back in time that would change your trajectory or just like ease her mind? Just what would you tell younger Melissa?
Good question. I would say two things. One, I really do believe this, everything happens for a reason. Trust in the journey, trust in the process. Some things will be incredibly painful, in your career wise. Yeah. And that pain is temporary. It really is temporary. The hardest things I've ever been through in my career in the moment are just so painful. They're so painful. You think there's no way out of them. And then in reality, 5 months later, you don't remember that. You almost romanticize it. It's so funny. It's some of the hardest things I've ever went through. Sometimes I'll be with my husband and I'll joke and I'll be like, hey, remember that? And he's like, you were miserable. And I'm like, oh, yes. I forgot about that because everything else was great. The story was great. The story is great. So I think pain is temporary and you don't realize that. And some of the hardest and worst things that you think are happening can be definitely blessings in disguise. I totally believe that. And then I also believe that having a bit of naivety in whatever you're doing is a blessing too. Having kind of a lack of an understanding maybe, or not having a playbook is your key differentiator almost, because you're not leaning on something that you think will work. You're building from scratch. And I think that when people are what's your competitive advantage? It's that you don't kind of have one, you're figuring it out.
Yeah.
And the ability to think freely and do that, I think, is actually a competitive advantage in itself. So going into media and advertising and trying to rewrite the model of what advertising was, and have never been in advertising before, to me, not knowing certain aspects of that was the most helpful thing, because I didn't know that the answer was never no. It was why not? Why? It wasn't 10 years of being told no, or 10 years of it being this way. It was just I'm going to come in and do this. And I think that's always the approach I've taken. And learning that every step of the way has allowed me to be everything can be disrupted. Everything can be differentiated. Everything can change. Yes. And it happens more now than it did, because everything was kind of very stagnant, I think, for many years. But now things, with technology becoming so democratized, things change so quickly.
Yeah.
That's obviously a huge advantage. It's being able to pivot and being agile, and a lot of the skill set of things are not the way that the way that they are this year are not going to be the way they are in 6 months. And understanding that is it's every 3 months things change. Yeah. I mean, open AI and really? What that's done to everything. But I think that's always been something that I think I embrace. I think not being comfortable with things is a very strong skill.
For sure. I mean, it's so clear even just after this conversation that you are comfortable with discomfort. So that's a huge skill. And it's so funny how companies typically hire for exactly what you were saying you wouldn't want to do next, right? Oh, you've done this before, come do it for us. And that's what people hire for, right? But that's a completely backwards way to look, because like you said, we should throw out the playbooks and be able to apply skills from what you've accomplished in other organizations versus the exact same thing you've done before.
Yes. It's an element of that, right? It's I will likely be building brand, but I don't want to be building the same brand. for the same industry.
The same way.
That just doesn't make this sense. I mean, I would never agree to do that. I think it's figuring out what that company should feel and look like and building brand for them. So yeah, it is funny that that's the way that people think, rather than saying like, oh, this outside the box thinker is sort of what we're looking for that has a track record of X. But like, I mean, I guess it's hard to find who that person is. But yeah, it is typically like, we want this, you know, and like, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe she should want
the specific channel, the specific way. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for joining us today. This has been so good. I would love to pick your brain endlessly. You should definitely have a class that I would take every day. So thank you so much for sharing some of your light and creativity with us. So appreciated.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening. If you liked the episode, I'm sure you did. Like, share, tag a friend, and connect with me and Melissa. I'm sure on LinkedIn, right? Best place to follow you, I imagine.
Easy to find. Yes.
Cool. Search also Spotify, Apple Podcasts. She's everywhere because she's just so great at sharing her intel. So thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next time.